What is going on, guys, and welcome to the Resurreccion, the World Cup edition. That's right, we are England manager, if you didn't already know, if you haven't been keeping up with the save. It is the Qatar World Cup, we are here, and I'm not going to play any games today. This is just going to be a quick video, just introducing my World Cup squad. I thought it would be easier just to do this in a separate video, because if I did it with games as well, then it would probably take quite a while. So I'm going to show you the squad that I have selected for this World Cup. Let me know what you think in the comments of the squad. I'll show you some notable admissions as well from the team. But let's go through it by position. So my number one, and probably my starting keeper, as in number one, he's literally number one, but probably my starting keeper as well, is going to be Jack Butland. 29 years old now, 21 caps. He currently plays in this universe for Tottenham, moved there last January, I believe. Yeah, in the January just gone, so not even been at Tottenham a full year. Spent a long time at Stoke. Yeah, he's now an established Premier League goalkeeper, and yeah, he's forced himself to be England number one. Backup keeper is going to be Jordan Pickford, 28 years old in this universe. For a long time, he has been my sort of first choice goalkeeper, but the emergence of Butland as a solid Premier League goalkeeper for a big team like Tottenham has sort of pushed his way past Pickford. Pickford now, well, still at Everton, 28 years old, as you've seen. Had a fairly solid career at Everton, it has to be said. But yeah, unfortunately for him, he's just sort of dropped back to second choice. My third choice goalkeeper for this World Cup is Nick Pope. Only ever got one cap for us. I think that was me in a friendly a while ago. He is Huddersfield at the moment. He isn't Huddersfield. He's at Huddersfield. Quite often my third choice goalkeeper. He's been about a little bit. Moved to Celtic second season in game. Had a really good season there. And then got a big money move to Huddersfield, where he's pretty much been an ever-present, had to be said. He was only at Celtic for 6 months, it looks like, and impressed that much. He then got a big move to Huddersfield, who are still in the Premier League. Fairly solid goalkeeper, but he's always really been my third choice. Moving on to the defence, and my first choice right back, Trent Alexander-Arnold. He is superb. If you watch my Liverpool series, you know how much I really like this guy in this game. A quality right back, 4 stars, such brilliant stats, literally nothing below 11. It looks like so well rounded, really good going forward. Still at Liverpool, of course, in this Premier League, been an ever-present, played really well for them. And yeah, has been my first choice right back for, I think, as long as I've been in charge of England. My backup right back for this World Cup is going to be Kyle Walker, 32, still at Man City, only 2.5 star, but a very solid option as well. Hasn't really let me down, although I do believe he got sent off. Oh no, I had to bring him on, sorry, someone got sent off in our warm-up friendly, and I actually had to bring Walker on as in a tactical reshuffle. But as you can see, still been at City in this universe. Played very solidly for them, albeit not a whole season, but more often than not, he's played plenty of games. And yeah, he's going to find himself as backup to Trent. Moving on to central defence, our first player in there is Joe Gomez. Again, a massive fan of this guy in game and in real life. As in my Liverpool save, he formed a formidable partnership with Virgil van Dijk. 25 years old now. Has quite often been in my first choice England lineup. And yeah, really solid, 3.5 stars. Still at Liverpool. Hasn't played an awful lot of games for them, it has to be said. But especially last season and this season, although not playing a massive amount of games, has really impressed. He was on the fringes. I do have a sort of selection policy. Depending on how many league games have been played in a season, I sort of set like a quota of how many of those games these guys should have played. And also, like, their average rating needs to be of a certain level. So, yeah, Joe Gomez just about qualifies for this World Cup squad. He's not playing many games for Liverpool this season, but is having a solid season. And he's always been reliable for me. So, he's part of my starting centre-half partnership. My other centre-half, first choice centre-half, should I say, is Harry Maguire. 29 years old now, still at Leicester. Unbelievably, 3-star player. But again, has been reliable for me whenever I've called upon him. Had some fairly solid seasons for Leicester. But yeah, he is going to be the ball-playing defender in our centre-back partnership. Perhaps the first surprise in this World Cup squad, Axel Tuanzebe. And yeah, I don't think many of you would have expected that either. 25 years old, only 2 caps. I have the person that gave him those 2 caps. He's only really come to the fore very recently. He's currently at Manchester United, but though he is joining, I beg your pardon, he's on loan from Man United at Atletico Madrid. He's joining them permanently. But he came to my attention playing for Atletico against Malaga. I didn't even realise that this guy was English. But he's had a solid season so far for Atletico. And yeah, he's really sort of come on leaps and bounds really. He's maybe not so much represented in his coach report, but he has performed superbly in the league, as we can see. And that form has really sort of brought him to the forefront of this selection policy. Our last centre-back, we've got 4, and it is Callum Chambers. Again, another potential surprise, only 2.5 star rated. He is currently at Lyon in game, but again, someone who's been on the fringes of my England squads. You know, normally he's only really called up if we've got injuries at centre-half or whatever, but when I have called upon him, he has played pretty well for us. If we have a look, he moved to Lyon in the 2nd season, completed his loan spell at Fulham, and then a big money move to Lyon, where he's played pretty well ever since. Again, only really seems to be playing about half a season, but so far this season having a superb season in France, his best one yet, and I think just as a backup centre-back, he's certainly a good choice to have. A couple of notable admissions at centre-half. No John Stones. He is the most highly valued centre-back that England have. 28 years old now, so many caps. But as you can see down there, he's only played 3 games this season for Chelsea, and he has played so poorly in those. So I think the lack of game time and the fact that he hasn't played well at all is really sort of the reason that he is not in this squad. If we have a look, £103 million Chelsea spent on him last season. He did have a good season for Chelsea last year. He's normally been my first choice centre-half, but as of late he's not been included in the last couple of squads because of a lack of game time, and unfortunately the big man has to miss out. Another centre-back to miss out who is normally in and around the squad is Jamal Lascelles, valued at 47 million. Again, one of our highest valued centre-halves, but it's not all about the value. 29 years old now, only 8 caps. I think I've given him the majority of those. But again, a lack of game time in the Premier League. He's been okay, but not spectacular. If we have a look, City spent 35.5 million on him, and he's done alright for them. Not played loads of games, but certainly a solid option whenever I've called upon him. But again, just a lack of game time unfortunately means that Lascelles isn't going to see this World Cup. So moving back to our squad then, our first choice left back is going to be Luke Shaw, still at Man United, 27 years old now, 23 caps, plenty of experience under his belt. Again, one of those who hasn't necessarily played the most amount of games, but has played brilliantly when he has played. If we just have a look at his history, again, has been at Man United ever since his move all the way back in 2014. Has played really well for United. Again, someone who hasn't really played a lot of games. You find that with some English players, is that they don't play a lot of games. So you have to strike the balance of, they might not be first choice at their club, but you don't want to drop down too far in quality and find someone who is playing a lot of games but isn't necessarily up to World Cup standards. So yeah, Luke Shaw going to be our first choice left back for this World Cup. Our backup left back is going to be 23-year-old Josh Timon. I'm going to go with Timon. Contracted to Stoke. He's been a FM wonder kid for a couple of years now. I mean, in real life, he's going to be what? Something like 20 odd, just looking at the date there. Only a 2.5 star player, 3-star potential ability. 6 caps for England. I'm pretty sure I've given him all of those. Again, played a lot of games in the Premier League at a decent standard, so that was kind of my reasoning for picking him up as a backup. In-game has been at Stoke, took them a couple of years to get to the Prem, but has been practically an ever-present, has been absolutely solid for them. So yeah, he's been decent whenever I called upon him, but I think Luke Shaw is going to be the main man. One unfortunate person not to be in the squad is Ben Chilwell, 25 years old, still at Leicester. He's got a long-term injury which has ruled him out. I think I would have called him up otherwise. He's been sort of him, and I think he's probably been my most called up left back. I think I've played him most at left back. I've tried a couple of other options, Shaw and Timon being 2 of those. But yeah, he definitely would have been in the squad. Just unfortunate that he's picked up a long-term injury, so unfortunate for him. But he's still got time on his side, so you know, if we're still in charge somehow in 2026, even if this save runs that long, then he could be in contention then. If we move into central midfield then, and Eric Dyer is our first choice central midfielder, defensive-minded midfielder, which suits the tactic that we play. 77 caps. He's been pretty much my go-to central midfielder if he's not been injured or suspended. Still at Tottenham in game. I know in some universes he tends to move around a lot. In this one, he stayed at Tottenham the whole time, and again has had very solid seasons playing for them. I know in my offline save I actually am Tottenham, and I sold Eric Dyer to Man City, I believe. I can't remember what season it is. I think I'm in like the 5th season of that now. I sold him to Man City, and then 6 months later he moved to Barcelona, and then a year after that he's now at Manchester United. So I know in some universes he's, you know, I've seen quite a lot that he goes to City or Barcelona, quite popular destinations. But for England, he's always reliable. He's very good for us, defensive rock, and yeah, going to provide excellent cover for our defenders. Our other central midfielder, first choice, is going to be Lewis Cook, 25 years old, 20 caps. Cook and Dyer have pretty much been my starting central mid partnership the entire time I've been England boss. I just checked actually between edits. Obviously, video is gonna be a lot longer in the actual entirety, and obviously I'll have to cut it down. But yeah, I took over as England manager in 2020, so I think I've just been in charge just over 2 years. I think Southgate got sacked after a really poor Euros, and I got offered the job there and then. But yeah, Cook's pretty much been an ever-present for me. He is still at Bournemouth, who are in the Championship. So perhaps a bit of a shock that a Championship midfielder is a first-choice England player, but he has been superb for me. He's grabbed himself a goal, and he's always in play. He is my sort of playmaker in the midfield. If we have a look, as we said, stayed at Bournemouth his entire career. They have sort of jumped up and down a little bit, but he's always been solid for them, having a really good season so far for Bournemouth. And again, the fact he plays in the Championship doesn't put me off. You know, he's a solid player. He's always played well for me. And yeah, I think that's sort of what swung me. He is wanted by Crystal Palace, so he may get a move back to the Premier League. I don't know how Bournemouth are getting on in the Championship. But yeah, a solid addition and Mr. Reliable, certainly for me. If we move into backup central midfielders, Nathaniel Chalobah is in the squad, and he has been really good for Watford in this universe. 27 years old now, 20 caps again. I think I've given him the majority of those, if not all of them. A couple of goals to his name as well. Again, a really good player for us, although not spectacular. He's been at Watford the entire universe, and again, average rating's not necessarily the best, but he's always fairly solid when relied upon. And again, he's only ever really going to be a backup. But obviously, in the World Cup, rotation coming quick and games coming quick and fast. Sorry, rotation is going to be necessary, and I'm certainly more than comfortable slotting in Chalobah when needed to. Our last central midfielder is going to be Voldemort. Yes, John Joe Shelvey is in the World Cup squad. I know this may be controversial to some, but again, a good playmaker, can get up and down, really crucial in play. He's played in sort of like nothing games, like you know, if we've already qualified for something or just friendlies. I tend to experiment quite a bit. Shelvey's played a few games with me, as you can see. He's grabbed a goal, but again, very solid for Newcastle. Been there in the entirety of this universe, and first season wasn't great, but I wasn't in charge then. It's sort of from the last sort of 3 years in game that I've been in charge, and as you can see, he's been solid. Last season, probably his best season. Actually, no, that's a straight up lie. This season hasn't been spectacular, but again, I've sort of gone with players that I know I can rely on, and a decent all-rounder, someone who I think could sort of have a good influence on play when sort of required. Now, this is a sort of player that I was a bit annoyed at when I realised he was not available. That's the wrong word, but basically I haven't picked him for England, I don't think, at all. I think the fact he's been away at PSG has completely escaped my mind, but obviously a really good player. Although he hasn't played loads of games for PSG this season, made a big money move there from West Ham last season. He's been pretty good, it has to be said. But yeah, when I saw Declan Rice's name after I submitted the squad, I was kicking myself a little bit. Although, be it, he may not have got into the squad just based upon the fact he hasn't played many games, and even when he hasn't been brilliant. But yeah, certainly a notable exclusion from the squad in central midfield. Moving into the attacking midfield positions, I do operate the same system with England that I do with Malaga, and it seems to really work with England. Raheem Sterling, our first choice right winger. Why wouldn't he be? 27 years old, 85 caps, 14 goals. This guy is spectacular for me. If he's not scoring goals, he's getting assists. A 4-star player, still at Manchester City. I've seen in other universes this year that he does move on sometimes. Maybe a little bit early for that, but he's sort of entering his prime now, and he's only ever been solid for Man City. Having a look at those stats, a couple of years ago, his best season by far in terms of goals and assists. But yeah, whenever I've used him for England, he's always been solid. Such a lot to like about him. Electric pace, I think, is what sets him apart. And yeah, Sterling is definitely going to be integral of all things good for us this World Cup. Our backup right winger for this World Cup is Reiss Nelson. He was uncapped before this World Cup selection. I announced the World Cup squad, and we played a couple of friendlies after that. He was uncapped before then. He did come on in one of the friendlies. But yeah, playing Premier League football, right wingers, there were sort of slim pickings really. Some notable exclusions, but again, if you watch my channel for a while, you know I like players to sort of be natural on their side, and he's only 22, so again, he's still going to have plenty of time to improve. Not quite the Theo Walcott extreme of the 2006 World Cup. Currently on loan at Sheffield United, has some various loan spells, Villarreal, Udinese, Watford as well. Again, not been spectacular, but Reiss Nelson is a player, most FM players will know. And yeah, he does grow into something pretty exciting, although this may suggest not too much. But yeah, he's maybe a little bit of a gamble. But again, I think he's fairly quick, got decent stats. I think his versatility is probably something that really drew me to him. Just again, a good player to have in and around the squad. Can even fill in at fullback if he had to. So yeah, one of the most shocking inclusions. I did say I had 2 uncapped players. I will show you the other one in a second. But yeah, Reiss Nelson. Notable exclusions from the right-hand side include Patrick Roberts. Again, fairly uncapped until recently, but in those 2 games he played for me, he played really well, grabbed a goal. He is on the transfer list, he is at Arsenal. Apparently it would be a brilliant signing. Only 12.5 million as well. That may be something we have to look at in January for Malaga. But yeah, operates as an inside forward, but again, on the transfer list, doesn't see a lot of game time. If we have a look, only 3.8 million Arsenal paid for him. He had one season where he played quite a lot of games. In the other games that he's played, in this other season, that he's played, it's been all right, although it hasn't been playing many games. And I think that's kind of what put me off him. He did have a knock at the time of selection. It was a little bit longer than that. But yeah, Patrick Roberts, one exclusion. Another one I considered was Jordan Ibe. He's been at Brighton for a while in game, but again, another player who suffers from really sort of poor form. Has never been capped by England, 26 years old now, moved to Brighton in the 2nd season for a lot of money, and hasn't really been that good. As you can see this season, pretty poor average rating. Did have a decent season last season, but he has been someone I've considered, but there's always been better options ahead of him. One player I have picked quite a lot is Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, 29 years old now, 44 caps. Again, his versatility is really useful. He's quite often been my backup winger in squads. He is at Sheffield United now, as you can see. 9.5 million they paid Liverpool. He was on loan at Newcastle the season before. Again, not really sort of... It's pretty unspectacular. I think that's what I'm trying to say. He has played a lot of games last couple of seasons. But yeah, sort of with his growing age, he's sort of deteriorating a little bit. And yeah, I think his poor form is probably what's cost him a place in this World Cup squad. Attacking midfield in the middle, and the number 10 role is a role that we are pretty blessed with. My first choice, I think, is going to be Phil Foden. He's got the number 10 shirt. He's come on leaps and bounds in this universe. Only 22 years old, so plenty of time left in him. 8 caps now he's got. Again, I might have given him the majority, if not all of those. But he's busted his way into the Man City starting 11 now. And as we can see, if we have a look, in game. He's just got better and better, just been playing more games and just been getting so much better. This season on course to have his best season ever. And yeah, really exciting player, always looks dangerous when we have him in the team. Some of these stats are pretty good. Passing and technique are 17, as well as dribbling and first touch. Great flair. He can make something, as you can see, his media description, unpredictable. Can make something happen out of nothing, and that could be a really crucial stat for this World Cup. Not a stat, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm recording this at like 7 AM on a Saturday morning because I can't sleep. And yeah, my brain's struggling to function a little bit. I've got coffee though, so hopefully I'll be alright. If you can call him a backup, my backup number 10 is going to be Dele Alli. 26 years old now. Quite often since I've started as England manager, he's been my go-to number 10, but the emergence of Phil Foden has really caught my eye, and the fact he's a few years younger, just, you know, he's a bit more exciting, I think. Dele Alli is a player that really frustrates me in real life, but we'll talk about that another time. 69 caps for England, 17 goals, a 4-star player, but certainly, you know, if I was to play him instead of Phil Foden, that wouldn't be a disaster. Has been superb for Spurs in this universe. Lots of goals, decent amount of assists from midfield. I know in some universes he can move on as well, so it may be a little bit of a surprise that he stayed at Spurs. But yeah, really blessed, like I said, with options in this attacking midfield. Maybe one player who can feel a bit hard to be left out is Jesse Lingard. Now, it does interest me that FM says his best role is as a number 10. As you can see, a natural on both wings as well. Can play in a number of roles. Not quite as good as Foden or Dele Alli. Is obviously playing at Chelsea, as you can see. 36 million they paid Man United in the second season. I've seen this move happen quite a lot. If not Chelsea, sometimes Arsenal, but more often than not Chelsea. Has been a really good player for them ever since he's been there. But Foden and Ali are always my go-to two. That was weird. 29 years old now as well. Played plenty of games for us. But again, it's just unfortunate that there's two players that's just better than him. James Maddison, another person as well who's played really well in this universe. Still at Leicester, 25 years old now. I've never captained, again, just because it hasn't been Foden to start with. It was Ali and Lingard, and now it's Foden and Ali. So again, James Maddison just really unfortunate. I could operate him in a different role, but obviously his number 10 is where he's most confident. Don't know why he's number 6, but yeah, been playing really well for Leicester. The last couple of years he's come on leaps and bounds. And yeah, you never know. Jack Grealish is one player actually that has really sort of, you know, he's a bit of a weird one because again that versatility is really good, and I've called him up a few times to the England squad, and sometimes he plays an absolute blinder. One game he even scored a hat-trick for us in quite an important game. I was operating him on that occasion off the wing, and he's been playing really well there. But now his preferred position has changed to a number 10, so I'm guessing he's been playing there in club football. Now at West Ham, when I was calling him up, he was at Bournemouth, so he's had a couple of moves. Was at Villa for a couple of seasons, got a big money move to Bournemouth. Really impressed there to start with. Went on a cheaper deal to West Ham, and it looks like he's having a really good season there. But yeah, Jack Grealish is someone that may not be a surprise to you that he's missed out, but he's someone that I have used quite a lot before. As you can see, 14 caps, 8 goals. He certainly has had an impact, but just gone off the ball a bit recently for his club. Hasn't really been in international contention, so yeah, he has missed out. On the left-hand side, Jadon Sancho has been my first choice since I've been England manager. He's been superb. 22 years old, 13 caps, 8 goals. 4.5-star player. This guy is superb. I have him in my offlane save for Spurs, and he might be like vice captain or something. He's probably our best player, and there's no doubt in seeing why. He's lethal, amazing pace, great technicals as well, decent mentals as well for a man of his age. Played really well for Dortmund since he's been there, as you can see in game. He's just been superb the last few years, especially. Although not getting the most amount of goals and assists, average ratings do account for a lot. And yeah, he's certainly a useful player, an exciting player. Will be in this team for many years to come, I have no doubts. He is wanted by Chelsea. That'll be interesting to see if it comes off. Our backup left winger is Emile Smith-Rowe, another probably like Reiss Nelson, probably joint most surprising inclusion. Again, he was the other uncapped player, but he's featured in both warm-up games for the World Cup. Natural on that left-hand side, operates as an inside forward, which I quite like, and has actually been playing regularly for Arsenal. As you can see, he's valued at 25.5 million. Similar sort of start rating to Reiss Nelson, but really good for Arsenal though. They've got two up-and-coming English wingers. If we have a look, he's had a couple of loan spells in game. Had a loan spell in the first season at Cardiff, and a loan season at Leicester. This season so far looks on course to be on for his best season, and yeah, again, just sort of a player that, you know, I've taken a punt, very similar to Reiss Nelson, but promising youngster. You know, versatility again is a good thing. We've got players who can operate in a number of positions, which I really like, and yeah, just sort of, it was a bit, this guy was sort of a bit like a gut instinct, if you know what I mean. Perhaps one notable exclusion from the left-hand side, Harvey Barnes has certainly come on leaps and bounds. I've only capped him once, that definitely was me. Again, a player who can play in a number of different roles, but just doesn't really play enough football for me to think of including him. He's been solid without being unspectacular, but this season only played 4 games. That is not enough for me to be able to consider him. Ryan Sessegnon is someone that I have capped a couple of times, as you can see, 5 caps. He's having an okay season with Watford, it has to be said, but yeah, not really in my thoughts. Was at Brighton for a season and then got a big money move to Watford. This season again looks to be on course for his best season, but just sort of fallen out of contention really. I think when I compared Smith-Rowe and Sessegnon, again, like I said, I don't know why, I just sort of had it in my mind that I wanted to go for Emile Smith-Rowe. Another player that I actually have capped is Ryan Kent, 26 years old, sort of in the wilderness really in real life. He must be out on loan somewhere. Only a 2.5 star player, currently at Stoke, and got a move there fairly cheap actually. He's been solid without being unspectacular again. Didn't really feature for Liverpool. Got his move to Stoke and he's done alright for them. Again, in one of my experimental squads, I did call him up. He did play alright for us in that game, but again, just never really in proper contention. Up front, it was 2 easy choices. England have 2 absolutely superb strikers in this game, and they're both in my squad. The first one, of course, Captain Harry Kane, now the top goal scorer for England. Got that message through. If it wasn't in the warm-up games, it was in the last friendly matches. A 5-star player, 72 caps, 55 goals is an unbelievable return. Still at Spurs, valued at 73 million, finishing of 20 is absolutely unbelievable. Again, just a solid player, so well-rounded. If we have a look at his record, just been banging in goals for fun at Spurs, albeit didn't have a brilliant season last season. Is getting on a bit now, but has always been Mr. Consistent for me, for Spurs. He is the captain, of course, the number 9. He is going to lead us to World Cup glory, I hope. Our backup striker, but again, we'll probably see a decent amount of play time, is Marcus Rashford. 54 caps now. He's 25 years old. You forget, because how young he emerged, it's easy to forget how old he is now. He's probably about 22-ish in real life, 21, 22. Hasn't scored that many goals, but again, I normally operate him always as a backup. But again, great pace, decent finishing. He's superb in this game. Man United quite often, as they always have in FM, just become the best team, and he is always there, right in the middle of it. Hasn't been spectacular in terms of goal scoring. This last season was his best season by a country mile, but now he's sort of growing into his element. I mean, growing into his element. He is 25 years old, but yeah, another really solid option up top. The next best option at striker was probably Callum Wilson. 2 caps. I don't know if I've given him them. As far as I can remember, pretty much every squad, I've always just called up Kane and Rashford because they're just far and away the best strikers. But yeah, Callum Wilson, one player who, you know, if those 2 weren't so good, then he may have got involved. Been solid for Bournemouth, you know, probably, again, 14 goals in 22. They are playing in the Championship, but, you know, he's always, we know how good he is in real life. 30 now, though, so time not on his side. But there we have it, guys. That is my England squad. Let me know what you think. You know, is there any people that I haven't mentioned that you would have included? What do you think about the exclusions, people that I've mentioned? I'm optimistic for this World Cup. We're only expected to get to the quarter-final, but if we have a look at our warm-up games, we beat Holland in a friendly 1-0. We did have to rely on a penalty. Holland are really good in this universe. Their team was pretty exciting as well. Lots of really good youngsters. And it was a fairly even game, but we did come out on top. And then in our most recent game, we went away to Argentina and absolutely humped them, it has to be said. Kane set us on our way with an early penalty and then a Jadon Sancho double before Alexander-Arnold got himself sent off. They did even up the man count, thank God for that. That was really nice of them. They had a man sent off. Lo Celso scored in the 94th minute, but we absolutely blew them away in the opening half an hour. And Argentina aren't quite the force that they once were in this universe. They're not brilliant. Only 18,000 I noticed turned up to that game, and they did have a solid team. If you have a look, they played like a 4-2-2-2, but the wingers, it was like 2 central midfielders and then 2 attacking wingers. And if you have a look, Dybala playing in central midfield, I'm not too sure why. Lo Celso as well, solid. Messi and Pavon, really good players. Lautaro, Martinez and Icardi up top. It's their defence that really lets them down. It did in this game. If you have a look, Loscri, I don't even know who that is, on a 6.1. Well, there you go. He's a regen playing for Nice. Vieto, I noticed, was a regen as well. He's at Palace, actually. Fairly young. Fair play. Mamana, of course, most FM players will know about. Martinez Quarter as well. I think he's someone that's become a bit of a stalwart in FM. And Gallardo as well, as someone I'm pretty sure I've never heard of. Wouldn't surprise me, he is only 24. So there you go, we've shown that we can hang with the best teams. Look at the players, they've got Escobar, Higuain, Servi, Maximiliano Romero, Palacios. They even brought on a sub-goalkeeper, for goodness sake. So the fact we were able to easily see them off is quite impressive. Just a reminder, our World Cup group is Australia, Senegal and Belgium. We are literally at the day of the Australia game, as you can see, some team. That is going to be the next episode, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this video. It's something a little bit different. I don't know how long this is going to be. I've probably been recording for quite a while now, but I'm really going to try and edit it down, make it short and snappy, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Get a bit of an introduction to the team and just know what we're going into. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it, guys. If you have, pop a like on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for more. I hope you're looking forward to this World Cup. I really am, and I'll see you guys in a breezy 35-degree Qatar. I'll see you then. Cheers.